Today's guest is Beau Dromiack. He's the principal at WMA Architects. All right, Beau, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Love it. I love your background. You have a collection of
Oh,
different things. It looks, is that some of your artwork back there? I see it.
yeah, some of my artwork. I have very limited wall space, so this happens to be the one area where I can put things I like looking at.
I love
Yeah,
it.
I have watercolor, and this is a casting, magnesium casting that we use to make some bronze casting for the third book, Sustainable Pine, that's coming out in about a year or so.
Yeah. I mean, I
So
look at your background. You have you teach graduate students at ASU. You have your own practice. You've worked on sort of national related projects in and around this. Um, but it looks like with your education, did you know pretty early on architecture, design was kind of the area you wanted to be in?
yeah, that's a great question. I started as a junior in high school, actually.
Yeah.
And my dad helped me get a job with a really teeny little architecture firm, two people, maybe three. And that was actually when, I mean, if you don't mind me just sharing this real quickly, I was taking an architectural drafting mechanical drawing class during high school, like many of us were, or some of us. And our teacher, I remember one day yelling about, because you're drawing on that green paper, and you may not have this familiarity in your background, but mechanical drawing, you draw on this green paper that if you erased it, the error was very visible, which meant you had to be super careful in how you laid out the drawing. So, and the classic was if you put a compass to draw a circle for your gear ink on the paper to draw the gears, you could never show a point, a hole in the paper. That would be bad. So you always stack up tape and to keep the pin from going through. But one day, the teacher of that class, he also taught shop. He taught auto school class. And he taught this class, but he yelled all the time, and he was always yelling because in shop it's always loud. So he was always yelling. So in this class is drawing or drafting, we're learning how to draw. He's always yelling. But what was funny was one day he's yelling at us about you're going to get fired if you don't have great lettering. And I'm in the back toward the back row, and I'm thinking, give me a break. That is, no one's going to fire you for your lettering. Well, believe it or not, 2, 3 weeks later, I get my interview, my kind of the job my dad kind of helped me get that first job as a junior in high school. I walk into the firm, they take me to my desk. There's like two desks back to back. One was empty, one was mine, and I had to make a comment. What the empty one was mine. I made the comment, well, who was sitting there before? Because I had a coffee cup on there. It looked like someone had been there. And they said, well, we had to let someone go last week. And so I said, well, what happened? Because I'm a nosy guy. They said, we fired him because of his lettering. I thought, what? There's no way my teacher could be that accurate. And so what did I do? Obviously I'm in the analog period of our career, of our profession. And I go home and I just start lettering like crazy. But I think of that so funny because a lot of what I write about, Craft Advantage and Super Architect are about the reduction in craft as a core value in our profession over the years. And it's been happening really since, I'd say the 70s, but particularly it's much noticeable starting in the 80s. And yet the 80s and 90s for sure. But the bottom line is when you were manually drafting, there was a higher heightened obligation to really make sure that detail is beautiful, your lettering was beautiful. You can't hide when you're an analog. You can hide all sorts of things virtually. You can't see how really well somebody's doing or how time efficient they are. It's really tough when it's on the screen. A practicing architect, a principal architect could walk through the drawing studio to go get his cup of coffee and see who can draw, who can't, who's erasing all the time, who's constantly taking their sheets off. And so there was this kind of cultural obligation to, because people are watching you, to really make sure everything you're doing is great. You don't want to get
Interesting.
fired. You're being judged by your colleagues. You want to make sure your drawings are beautiful and accurate. And it also put an emphasis on quality of your detail because you're sitting there drawing a detail. You don't want to be erasing it. So you made sure it was correct. You made sure it worked.
Yeah.
And
I
that
mean,
just drove the whole thing.
yeah, it's interesting. It's just what I thought about when you were saying that is, okay, so it was easier before to tell who knew what they were doing and not. Well, I'm sure there's some tells now. What have they evolved to?
Yeah. So the area where it was hard is um, instead of the immediacy of seeing progress, it went into the virtual world where a lot of you don't get to see the product until it comes out, it's printed, or some Bluebeam stopping point where you can look at it. And that's really what it is today, is that I don't think of many companies that I can think of actually do a lot of printing anymore. It's mostly virtual, mostly using Bluebeam Studio and so on. And one reason why is that you're able to, of course, have all sorts of cross coordination review of the documents. You can track edits, you can track all that's very amazing, very powerful. The internal, the other piece of this, so that's like a review. Think of it like a formal review. Prior to that, that interim between idea to developing the documents, the only way you can address it in terms of quality is multitude of coordination meetings. So we have like two or three a week, depending, where teams put up on the screen the content, and then we are able to kind of see right then how it's doing. Plus, we're able to inform, and we always have integrated. I lead and nurture integrated design team, so we have all our disciplines involved in all these meetings. So that's really the answer to that question is simply you can't, you just have to have a proactive integrated design process because things slip away if you don't get them, visible enough for people to help mentor and so on.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to write a book. I mean, what sort of inspired you to write a book? I think do you have a few or a few in the
I
works?
have
Or
two. I have two out. They're both on Amazon, but this third one is Sustainable Pine. That's going to be 26, 27. That's in process now. That's a house that's about net zero design. Excuse me, zero waste design. Um, and also we're going to be building the physical house that the book will represent. So that's kind of happening. But what made me write Craft Advantage was again, it's kind of funny. My diverse background in the profession, which I curated myself, I very early in my career, I got very interested in the macro pressures of our profession. And while I love the detail, I love drawing beautiful things and all that, it's very much something that I'm into in the art of architecture. But I started seeing these macro pressures as interesting to me, and I just didn't understand them. And I'd see them and think about them, and again, in experience, I didn't fully appreciate what they meant. As I progressed in my career, and I got these cool opportunities, and I will often take opportunities outside of my comfort zone. Like I remember being asked to lead a team for architecture engineering, an engineering company, big E, little A. I thought, what the hell? That I never even thought about that. So I joined that environment, a very heavy semiconductor firm and so on, and I learned huge amounts, right? But I jumped into kind of just different worlds and I learned. So as a result, I started seeing these different cultures of architecture and construction. When I did the higher ed studio, I created a higher ed studio for a firm I worked for 12 and a half years. And in that, I was meeting with all these different contractors and these different kind of stakeholders. And so I started seeing something. And when I went to my job on the development construction side, I saw it even more pronounced, which was essentially architects are losing advantage, they're losing influence because the documents aren't great. They've been slipping and slipping and slipping and slipping, and it has a lot to do with accelerated change, accelerated delivery, things that the profession had no idea to expect. It's like no criticism of our profession. It's simply that as we started having to move faster and faster and faster, we did not bring the requisite skills of craft as a core value to run with that same speed. So
Mm,
we're running fast, we're adapting, but we're not actually training our teams to move quickly while at the same time a high level of quality.
yeah.
And so I use the analogy that we're kind of like a minivan trying to travel at Mach 2. We have
Mhm.
these traditional legacy things. We have a core value that's fractured across our industry. We just don't really have it anymore as a craft, as a core value. It's just not there like it was when I was starting out. So all of this has turned into a very interesting thing, and I've saw it firsthand in a multitude of environments where it became clear to me that this is something I wanted to write about. Is that as we've been declining in craft, the contractor has been increasing in influence because architects have been creating a craft vacuum. And that vacuum is shifted as risk and profit erosion to the contractor. Well, they hate risk and profit erosion more than anything. And so they can't control the quality of drawings coming out of the architect. They try, but they can't really. But they can control what they do internally with those documents. And what they're doing is they're hiring, creating VDC teams, virtual design and construction teams. They're hiring what I call architect replacement expertise. People are maybe retired architects or architects or to come in, and they're also hiring and creating whole new roles like design managers, essentially to manage the design team. Whereas in the past, that would never be the case, but because the reduction has occurred, the decline, it's come out of necessity. So as we're doing this, the contractor is doing that, and as the contractor goes up in influence, the architect is less and less at the table. Essentially, craft advantage is our advantage for the built environment, for vision, everything you can talk about just comes from our craft, and if craft is low, our advantage is low. So I saw this in multiple areas. I'm thinking, oh my God, and no one's talking about it. National conferences and craft is never mentioned. Core value is not even mentioned. I guarantee as a young man growing up in the profession, anyone in architecture, dealing particularly in that early phase, felt the pressure from the principal, the pressure from the senior architect mentoring you that you better do a good job. It was uniform, quality and craft, uniform. But then as we've gone through the last, 40, 50 years, it's just been doing this. And there's evidence everywhere, there's evidence everywhere. So that's what made me write Craft Advantage. And it basically gets into that decline and how we can get back upward. I
Okay.
propose these craft.
How can you get back upward?
Yeah, I realized something is that all architects, I'm going to say all in quotes, a vast majority are actually doing the things that are needed to get the curve back up. They just aren't thinking about it. And so I represented these three craft aisles. And the first craft aisle is whole building thinking, perforated silos. So that's one where you train your team, yourself and your team, to not think about just these narrow things within our profession, but the whole building. So you care about cost, you care about maintenance of the building, you care about the specifications, life cycle of material, you care about all this stuff. You don't say, well, that's not important. It's equally cared. And then a perforated silo idea associated with that dial, it's a dial, is that you have a culture that's comfortably reaching through to all the different disciplines. You have a silo that's perforated and everyone else's silo is perforated, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, specifications, everything else, and they all reach in together. And it's just a culture that allows that. You don't have the throw over the wall thing. The second dial is intelligent idea integration, which is essentially uh, this idea of innovative thought leadership in our sector, in our industry. So if you're a healthcare architect, you actually pursue specialized knowledge in that area. So you can actually create what I say, like present an intelligent idea to integrate a solution for as a proactive way of advancing our industry. And I think when you do that, that's how you become a thought leader. And then the third dial is accountability and mentorship. The third dial is about teaching accountability within your company, within your team, that the people are accountable for their craft. The mentorship is leaving the environment, or I should say two things. It's mentoring your own internal team and then mentoring and volunteering at universities to help get that real life experience in there. So I talk about these as three dials. And I say all you gotta do is turn them up a little bit. If everyone just turned them up, the same things we're all kind of doing. What if we focused it and turn them up? That's how it goes, increases. And in the back of the book, gets into skills associated and how to do that. So that's kind of craft
Yeah.
image.
No, very cool. Intentionality.
Yeah, exactly.
So you told me earlier at ASU, this is probably related to your mentorship thing. You sort of mentor sort of a national design build competition, and it sounded like a lot of fun. Walk me
Yeah.
through that and how you're involved.
Yeah, so NAU, so I obviously teach at ASU, but I've been volunteering for a long time at NAU on and off for helping their construction school. They have an amazing construction school at NAU. Uh, and it's super, I love it. I mean, I love the people, the culture. They're really cutting edge. They're always trying to get, really, just it's a great place, right, for that. And it's a really good school. So I got invited a number of years back to offer, they enter a national design competition, excuse me, national design build competition that's in Reno, Nevada every February. And so we start in the fall, and I represent the design side. So I create a series of lectures and meet with the students to teach them how to do high level quick code analysis, exiting, whatever structural, all sorts of things that you would want to do conceptual design to give them the fundamentals that take many years to learn. But I kind of create a toolbox and teach these construction students these design tools. And then they role play on their 6-person team. A person will be the architect, engineer, manager, that kind of thing. And so we, during the whole semester, working with the ASU, excuse me, with the NAU team and some other construction partners, we give them mini problems to challenge them. They get a problem and they got essentially 24 hours to finish it and present it to us to test their, build their team and solving quick problems. And when they eventually land, I say land, they'll fly to Reno, Nevada. And literally, when they get off the plane within like an hour, they're given their problem and they got 21 hours to solve it as a team. So and that's in February. So we're doing all this training, and we've been doing this for many years now. But I wish I just think it's great. It's huge fun. And
Yeah,
I
yeah. Give
do,
me, give me, give me an
yeah,
example of a problem that they would get. The training ones, the 24
yeah,
hours. Like, what's
yeah.
the
We
problem?
would, in terms of our mini problems, or
Yeah.
their, yeah, yeah. So the mini problem, one of them was doing a recital hall. So they get it, and actually, really tough one, by the way. How would they basically handle this adaptive reuse recital hall project? Now, these are existing projects that we take and we tune them for a mini problem. So projects I've done, design wise, for example. It could be so a lot of the ones I've done have to do with higher ed because I did that for so long, have and all current and some advanced projects. But they would get a project like that. Here's a site plan, here's a program, and there's enough design done because it's a completed project that then you focus them on a particular aspect of it. So we also did, I'm a school of business at ASU, and this idea of how do you expand a school of business, so they got an expansion project. So think about what they have to do. They have to, one, integrate as a team because they have a little time to say, okay, who's doing costs, who's doing design, all that kind of stuff. And then they have to get enough, and this is one of their challenges because architecture students in the education of architect are pretty good at all the software. The construction students aren't so good at the 3D modeling. Some are actually, believe it or not, but it's not so much the core skill set. So then they got to figure out how they're going to realize it. But they're hard problems, and then they have to, and they're intentionally hard. They have to also figure out not just on the design side, the construction logistics. They have to create a cost model for the project. They have to do a schedule with it. They also have to do any of the unique natures of sustainable criteria associated with the project, floodplains, zoning, all that stuff. They got to get, it's really cool.
So I'm just trying to visualize, they get off the plane within an hour of getting off, they get this problem. They have 20, 21 plus hours.
Yeah.
I mean, what do they do? Pack a bunch of Red Bull and just go straight.
That's basically it. I mean, that's basically it. It is. They're psyched up too. They're ready to rock and roll. And you can't. There's certain limitations. Like there's certain you can't access the internet and certain things like that.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
you have to. There's limitations on that depending on the project. But yeah, no, it's intense. It's boot camp. Like it's cool though. And what's really fun about it. And I really think this should be, I've thought about in Super Architect, I talk about kind of the future of architecture and the education of architecture, different business models and so on. And also I talk about how AI optimize, what's our posture leaning forward with AI as a tool that
Okay.
we use and define. Well, in that there's also this idea of next level. I call it in the book, one of the third characteristics of the super architect is the optimism and next level integration. So I think next level integration is all about essentially the skill set to look at complementary but distinctly potentially different things and bringing them together. And I just think that should be the core of our education. because architecture and engineering and construction, we're
Mm.
constantly in an integrated form, but we're not really trained that way. And even though some people call it integration, it's not really. So what's really nice about the design build thing, although it's not architectural centric, it's building centric, design and building centric, but it is all about that integrated thing. And so to me, that's really core future education, at least
Yeah,
one, and that's why I teach, by the way. I'd like to help that happen.
sure. How do you diversify your understanding of what, goes on as a whole to help better get a result?
Yeah. And that's ultimately, it's really funny. You are educated often in case as an island, which is partly important because it's like teaching someone violin, and you can't do it as a committee. You have to do it individually, right? And so you have to get those individual core skills established. But then you have to start layering on that team integration and how you can maintain skills and maintain vision and maintain clear ideas while also incorporating other people's ideas. So at Super Architect, excuse me, at Craft Advantage, I talk about an idea I presented at AIA Young Guns many years ago called Infinite Ideas, which is just simply this mentality, this philosophy. It has to be to the core where the ideas a design team are creating, an architect's creating, are one of infinite. In other words, it's not like here's my protected idea I worked on all night, and then I spend the whole time defending it. Instead, it's an idea that is one idea of an infinite number. And when you have that attitude, then all of a sudden the door opens for collaboration. Your client doesn't feel like they can't say things. Consultants and engineers and builders, hey, I have an idea. And because of that infinite idea approach, you're able to actually, no one feels a barrier to a new idea. And then the architect's next level, optimism, next level integration, you know, keeping the vision of the project in mind, so can pull all that together wherever and get the maximum involvement, and you get the best ideas ultimately. So that's kind of what I think is super important. That there's a saying, I have no idea where it came from. I should look it up. A camel, a camel is a horse designed by a committee. So you got to have vision. You got to have visions, but you also have to have an inclusive idea environment so you get the best resolution of that vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So yeah, you need some focal point or idea where you want to go, but be very, very open to, what path you take to get
yeah,
there.
yeah, 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 yeah.
All right. Awesome. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you wanted to share?
Well, one thing I taught, the second book, Super Architect, it's called Super Architect: The Future of Architecture. And it's a continuation of Craft Advantage in the sense that Craft Advantage looks at kind of the issue of kind of the past and present and the issue of influence and how we get our influence back and so on in the decline in craft, obviously. But Super Architect it's a bigger book, and it gets into now that we kind of know something about the past, and we can look backward and say, wow, we did lose some craft from an over reliance on, let's say, virtual tools, or maybe an inappropriate training to use tools at a high level of craft. We can look back and say, yes, it's fair to say that we lost our core value of craft. I mean, it's obvious. You can look around and ask anyone producing documents and contractors building off of them, right? So we can look back objectively and say, such is life. We've learned some things, or we could learn some things. Super Architect takes the attitude that we have no excuse now. In the past, we had an excuse because, well, how would we know? AutoCAD first invented. How would we know? No idea. These amazing virtual tools, how would we know that we would give up our craft as a core value so easily? Not easily, but a little bit over time. That's a more fair statement. So now with super architects, okay, now that we know all of this, there's no excuse. Now we have AI coming. AI's here. 10 years, AI is probably AI. AI will be doing technical drawings on some level. It's going to impact the industry, and there's no escaping that. And so my position in the super architect is one, we have to define AI through use. We have to use it. We have to understand how it's used and and innovate how to use it. And we do that through creating AI optimized architecture firms that are cutting edge towards how they're using it as a tool. The other piece of that is We is the super architect. The characteristics of the super architect are value. The value of craft is care, care is our craft. The skill, hardened skills, imagination, creativity, and the optimism and next level integration. What's interesting is I have in the book a roadmap to resilience that kind of lists everything architects do, everything that I see future contractors doing with future AI. And you can see, oh, wow. I mean, a future contract or a contractor with future AI can basically do a lot of what architects can do, except those three things I just mentioned. Those three things weirdly transcend the whole deal. So my point of super architect is you embrace the super architect characteristics. You don't worry about holding on to legacy skills too much. For example, technical drawings. You know, AI will eventually become the tool architects can use to generate technical drawings. If we hold on too much to trying to compete with AI, machine learning technical drawings, we'll eventually lose. But we can step out and say we're going to focus on the value, the imagination, creativity, and the optimism of integration, things that AI is not going to ever really do really well. It's going to be really our domain, the architect's domain. The point of the book is we protect ourselves with resilience to all the unknowns because we have so many unknowns by focusing on those three things that really clearly can be the domain of our profession and prevent us from being fractured. So get back to a core value of craft because right now we're a very fractured profession. You can do anything you want. There's no philosophy holding the profession together like it used to be, and we really need to get that back in order to be a super architect. Is how we get it back, but to just prevent our profession from dramatically getting hit by AI. It's going to get hit no matter what. 40%, 45% absorbed, into different companies. You leave practice completely. Any commodity focused architecture that's highly at risk of have a huge reduction because of AI. Specialized like a lot of what my team does and others, that's less likely, but definitely, there's an impact there. So that's what Super Architect's about. So, you know, that's be my final thought. I just think we got to get unfractured. We got to get unified around craft and lean into AI.